Welcome back to the 17 News at Sunrise podcast, where we share your news on your schedule.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
Good morning. New restrictions come to Kern County today after we were added to the state's monitoring list for a surge in coronavirus cases. A look at how this will work as businesses prepare to move outdoors or close.
And for the fifth day in a row, Kern County Public Health reports a record number of new COVID-19 cases. We'll break down the numbers as we await an update in about 5 hours.
And baseball is back. America's pastime returns after the longest baseball drought in history. But one game had to abruptly end. We'll explain on this Friday, July 24th, 2020. Good morning, Kern County, and thanks so much for joining us and starting your day with us here on 17 News at Sunrise. I'm Alex Fisher along with Maddie Jansen, and yes, I stayed up late watching Game 1 of this 60-game season, and of course it's a shortened season because of the coronavirus pandemic. But Maddie, we kind of talked about this yesterday. It was a good thing to see some sort of normalcy during this crazy time, during this pandemic. It was good to see the players back on the field, even though it looked a little different.
It looked different, and what everyone just saw right now was the ceremonial first pitch thrown out by Dr. Anthony Fauci.
Which didn't go that well. It did not go that.
It
wasn't the greatest first pitch.
It's kind of like my pitch might look. I don't know. But either way, it was great to see baseball back. I know baseball fans are very excited about that. Let's check in with Kevin. Were you up late watching as well, my friend?
No, unfortunately, I was a little tired last night. But hey, Dr. Fauci is a doctor, not a baseball player. And hey, at least he gave it a try, right? On the weather front, I hope you enjoyed yesterday because look at the temperature. We hit 93 degrees, so that was a nice sight. Unfortunately, it's going to be a little bit warmer for us today. Right now, we've got a nice, comfortable temperature of 73 to start off our morning here. We have an east-southeast wind at 5 miles per hour. And as we take a look at the dog walk forecast for you today, starting out at 8 a.m. right around 74, you can see we'll warm up into the 80s fairly early. By 2 o'clock, we're at 86. And then as we progress into the evening, we will see those 90s by 8 p.m., 96 degrees. So best to get the dog walk in early this morning. 59 degrees out in Tehachapi right now. You have a northwest wind of 3. Take a look at the wind forecast for today. And by tonight, we see a little pocket of wind out on the west side and also out in the desert. That's right around 10:30 this evening, but that's about all the wind we're going to see. And then you can see out of Tehachapi, we will rise into the 80s throughout the afternoon. I've got much more on your forecast. That's coming up in just a bit. But first, back over to you.
All right, thanks so much, Kevin. From gyms to nail salons, many businesses are expected to close again today. This all comes as new coronavirus restrictions roll out across Kern County. Starting this morning, indoor operations across these and other industries are expected to be ordered to shut down. During the COVID-19 briefing on Thursday, Public Health Director Matt Constantine said that he is waiting for official word from the state, but he expects those restrictions to be in place this morning. That includes indoor services at gyms or fitness centers, places of worship, personal care services such as salons and barbershops, shopping malls and entertainment venues. However, outdoor operations can still be allowed. Some may need a special permit, though. Constantine said the county's not enforcing these new restrictions, but the state is and has set up a strike force to check for compliance. And that's the subject of our interactive feedback poll this morning. We want to know, with some businesses moving outside, would you be willing to visit an outdoor hair salon or barber shop? Call or text us at 888-4617. Press 1 for yes and 2 for no. You can also text, tweet, email, or Facebook your comments. And that phone line, once again, is 888-4617. We'll air some of those comments and have results coming up.
The surge of coronavirus cases continues here in Kern County. This comes as our local health officials continue to tackle the massive backlog, and it's showing that more people are getting sick from this virus. Here's a look at the new numbers. Public Health reported 1,135 new cases of COVID-19. We've seen more than 5,000 new cases reported since Saturday. That means that more than 12,000 people have tested positive since March. More than half of those cases are considered active. No new deaths were reported yesterday, but we know at least 115 people have lost their lives to the disease. 25 have died this month.
The Department of Health and Human Services has approved surge testing in Bakersfield. The government will contract with a company called eTrue North. They're proposing up to 3 testing sites. One has already been approved. Government and health officials hope it will be able to process up to 60,000 tests a week. To put that into perspective, Kern County has conducted 111,000 tests since March total. The company has its own lab and processes its own tests, and results are expected in 2 days or less. The county says it's also bringing testing to the fields, rolling out mobile testing for farm workers thanks to a partnership with Good Samaritan Hospital and the California Farm Workers Foundation. County Chief Information Officer Megan Pearson could not give an exact day for when that would begin, but said hopefully early next week.
If you want to help people survive COVID-19, your goodwill could actually earn you some extra bucks. When you recover from COVID-19, your body develops antibodies that boost your immune system, and donating your blood plasma after that can actually help other patients. But even though more than 5,000 people have recovered, only 100 people here in Kern County have donated their plasma. That's according to Houchin Community Blood Bank. So to motivate the thousands of potential donors, Houchin is now offering gift cards. Anyone who recovered from COVID-19 and donates their convalescent plasma will receive a $50 gift card to a local restaurant. And then Houchin will also have 2 drawings a day for a $500 gift card. This is happening Monday through Saturday. If you're interested in donating, you can call 616-2575.
5:06 your time now. The huge jump in coronavirus cases lately has slammed Kern so hard and so fast that ambulance service in Kern County is overwhelmed. Hall Ambulance says it's been inundated with calls since the pandemic began. Mark Coram of Hall Ambulance says since the outbreak started, Hall has transported more than 1,000 COVID patients. That includes 352 in June and close to 400 this month.
The end goal is when somebody calls 911 for a medical emergency, a Hall Ambulance will be there ready to respond.
Each transport can take hours just to offload the patient into the emergency room. After that, at least an hour more to disinfect the ambulance before it's ready to go back into service. That translates into fewer available ambulances as cases spike.
And it's not just ambulances running at capacity. Our county officials are also keeping a close eye on our nursing staff as they continue to handle the surge in COVID cases. 17's Robert Price explains.
Kern County has managed to stay ahead of the infection, bed space, nursing staff curve for 4 months now. That comfort zone has officially disappeared. In Thursday's Public Health Department press briefing, Kern Medical CEO Russell Judd admitted area hospitals have reached capacity several times over the past 2 weeks.
All the hospitals are at the point of max capacity, and we're now beginning to implement these surge plans to be able to care for the people in our community.
But the problem is not just bed space, it's staffing too. Kern County Supervisor Mike Maggard tells me the board will on Tuesday consider an expenditure of between $15 and $20 million to bring 84 ICU nurses from out of the area. Maggard said local leaders conferred with a medical staff brokerage to arrange for the additional nursing staff. The funds would come from the county's federal emergency funding allotment of $157 million. That's the so-called CARES program, which also funded local emergency small business loans. The nurses would be deployed to the local hospital most in need of them on a given day. Kern Medical, Mercy, Memorial, Adventist, and the Heart Hospital would initially participate in the shared nurse program. The county's in the process of signing contracts now that would fund this booster shot of nursing staff through the end of the year. Those contracts contingent on board approval next week. In addition to bringing in these emergency nurses for hire, local hospitals are also transferring in nurses from other areas who work for the same hospital parent companies, and they are up-training existing nursing staff not currently qualified to work with COVID-19 patients. Local government officials and major healthcare providers who are normally quite competitive are working together in ways they haven't before against a common enemy that seems to be on the offensive. In Bakersfield, Robert Price, 17 News.
Valley Children's Hospital says it doesn't think that people are seriously considering how dangerous COVID-19 is for children. Executives held a virtual news conference from Madeira to discuss how the virus is affecting families. The hospital says they have seen an 8% positivity rate for patients that they've tested, with 69 children having to be hospitalized. CEO Todd Suntrapak said many people assume children don't have as much to fear about COVID-19.
When we see a dialogue and a narrative that is focused on how small the risk is numerically to children, it is particularly objectionable and we feel would be a miscarriage.
He says children are being put in situations where they can be infected or infect others, and that the hospital is warning about COVID-19's link to multi-system inflammatory syndrome, which can leave children in pain and has been deadly in some cases.
A shocking new report shows nearly half of American adults have underlying medical conditions that could put them at risk for severe COVID-19 illnesses. That's according to a new report from the CDC. The researchers looked at a census data as well as self-reported health information from adults in over 3,000 counties. They found that 47% had at least one of the 5 underlying conditions that could put them at risk for a severe illness of COVID-19. That includes COPD, heart disease, chronic kidney disease, diabetes, and obesity. And the CDC released new guidelines for schools. These mainly focus on how to safely get students back into the classroom. As the organization points out the mental and emotional toll of keeping kids at home. The CDC reinforced rules around social distancing and sanitization measures. It also made suggestions about where and how to physically hold class. The CDC says schools should look at holding class outside if possible and move students into underused buildings. The idea here is to keep students spread out. It also suggested schools look into pods where the same group of students learn together all day. Of course, the CDC also says schools need to have plans ready for if children get sick or if a teacher tests positive for COVID-19.
We're back in your 17 Court Watch this morning. Trial for a man accused in the honor killing of his daughter-in-law has been pushed back to November. 65-year-old Jagjit Singh is charged with first-degree murder in the shooting death of 37-year-old Sumandeep Kaur Kunar. The alleged crime happened in August 2019 at the family's home on Menachie Meadows Drive in southwest Bakersfield. Singh told police he shot Kunar because she was having an affair and threatened to leave the family, according to court documents. Singh remains in custody on $2 million bail. His attorney has several other trials pending, so Singh's is now scheduled for November 3rd. Kern County Sheriff's deputies arrested 5 people after 2 searches turned up drugs and several weapons. This happened Tuesday at 2 homes a few miles apart. The first search happened at a home on LaFrance Drive near F Street. The next one at a home on Grizzly Peak Drive near the corner of Old River and Harris. In the first search, deputies found meth, Xanax, 2 rifles, illegally manufactured handguns, and money believed to be from drug sales. They arrested Michael Zimmerman, Lane Sessions, and Jacob Weldon. In the second search, deputies found 34 pounds of processed marijuana, 7 illegal gaming machines, and more than 2,000 grams of concentrated cannabis, and more than $76,000 in cash. They arrested Richard Morin and Jacqueline Belize on multiple charges. A new batch of Kern County Sheriff's deputies was sworn into service. The new recruits held a graduation ceremony yesterday, and it was streamed live on Facebook. The Sheriff's Office says the academy this year was like no other because the class was in full swing when the pandemic hit. The Sheriff's Office also announced there will be 2 Detentions Academy graduations coming up soon.
In Washington today, the clock is ticking. Unemployment is running out, eviction protection is running out, and Republicans now say they'll unveil their coronavirus relief next week. Tracy Potts is in Washington with more.
Over 4 million coronavirus cases, 1,000 deaths a day, and unemployment running out.
It means I'm homeless. There's no answer. I don't have an option.
As lines grow at test sites and unemployment centers, Republicans say their $1 trillion fix rolls out next week.
Our proposal will focus on 3 things: kids, jobs, and health care.
It's going to put the people of America and those that are suffering the most as our number one priority.
The plan will include direct payments to Americans, a second round of business loans, help for hospitals and healthcare workers, a limit on Medicare premiums, liability protection, and temporary unemployment.
If you were making $300, you're not going to get $600 this time.
We want to shore up middle class, those aspire to it, and Main Street.
We want to deal with evictions right now. I mean, the eviction moratorium is expiring in a few days.
Today, the CDC holds a briefing on reopening schools.
All families should be empowered to make the decision that is right for their own circumstance.
New guidance provides checklists and questions to figure that out. Republicans are also offering $105 million to schools, slightly more than the Democrats' plan, but some of that money is restricted to schools that reopen in person. Tracy Potts, NBC News.
The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is a production of KGET and Nexstar Media Group. For more on all of the headlines in today's show, head to kget.com.